Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military veterans and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Faust, and this is the lovely Michelle that will be with me for life and hopefully on each and every episode.
It's good to be here.
See, there you go. And that's your tagline for today. So welcome back into the boardroom on day number 2. We are so sorry we missed our clubhouse. Trying to balance the world and the boardroom and everything else was crazy. So if you missed it, I'm sorry. I wasn't there, but we will go over and press on. That's integrity, right? Doing everything right and then owning up for it. So we are going to go jump into our topic. I gotta look real quick. Rewrite your story in the boardroom. And we're talking about balancing the E and the I. We'll get there in a moment. Little disclaimer though, I might be saying that something might be offensive, but we have military veterans and first responders on here. So this is the thought that you probably have when you first went over and transitioned out as a law enforcement officer, fire, EMS, or a military person, and you joined the civilian world. And you probably said the civilians are so like, beep, 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 or you were thinking it and you didn't say it. So have you ever felt that way? You get out of the service or you get out of the force and you're just like, internally brewing and everything else because you're just and we want to talk about how do you work within this new world. So we came up with 10 tips after about almost 10 years out of the service full-time. I'm still in it part-time. It's kind of crazy how the balance is. So how to go over and transition. And I'm going to allow my wife to share from each perspective of these things because she had to transition her life to go from full-time mil spouse with 4 kids to now going out into the world and being a stay-at-home mom and then back to work. And then I became a stay-at-home dad.
And I had no affiliation to the military lifestyle or even anything to do with it before marriage. So.
Yeah. So she jumped in from both. She went from like, hey, I don't even want to marry a military person. No way. She said she was going to be a pilot. So it was like a totally different life. And now she's going over and piloting our show at all cylinders. So let's go jump in. So number 1 is to learn your triggers. This is actually a place to actually learn it best. You don't want to go learn it in the boardroom. You actually want to learn this, hopefully safely in the bedroom. Because if you don't know your triggers, you're just going to go off. So for example, you might be the person that gets mad when people go over and interrupt you. You might go over and get mad in many different places. So Michelle, do you know what your triggers are?
I think when I feel like you're being controlling and I want to be in charge of a situation, when the power dynamic gets kind of off kilter between the two of us.
Mm-hmm. So those things, if you learn when you're in the bedroom, is definitely going to go trigger in the boardroom. It's not as intense. It's not as much, but you'll go over and feel it if a coworker is doing the similar type thing from there. So learning your triggers is the first thing in that particular world. In the military, we kind of take people's triggers and we just deal with it. We don't actually learn about our own. We don't learn about our coworkers. We just go over, and because it's the mission, we just go over and allow the mission to go over and dictate. And then if that person has quote unquote too many triggers, we kind of let them go. Well, in the civilian world, those people, they can hang on to them for a long time. I've been in places that people have had triggers to the extreme that they get on the news, and other people that gone over and they should have been on the news and they should have been gone. And you had to go over and to deal with them, and also your own. If you're not learning your triggers, it's going to be very hard for you to go and do that because you might react to something that might be something that's normal in the civilian world, or vice versa. They might react to you and going over and doing that. The second one is to take it slow. My wife can attest, I did not go over and take it slow. How fast did I go when we got out?
0 to 1,000 when the speed should have been 5 miles an hour.
Yeah. This is what I rushed into. I went over and said, hey, I'm going to do an entrepreneurial business. I'm going to go over and go hit a bunch of churches. There's 3,000 churches in 30 square miles. And I hit about 250 either through email, social media, phone call, the old school phone book. Yeah, those things existed in 2013. They're actually paper things that had phone numbers in there. It's really helpful. And everything else, and within a 60-day period, I did not go over and take it slow to transition. My acronyms were still there. They still are, but they were like really there and blatant. And my expectations were high on the civilian community, and I didn't go over and take it slow. It pretty much wrecked us and destroyed us because I took it too fast, too quick. Like I should have went and got a job or a contract while going over and doing business. Not saying that is for you, but taking it slow and taking that time. And especially if you can build a good nest egg so you can take it slow, so then you can find the place that best works for you. Going from there is creating a routine. We're still learning that now. Creating a routine is go over and key. You know, my wife is fast on this part. She went over and we set up a routine yesterday and she's like, boom, she's already like skyrocketing and everything else. We just need to get a few other tools and whatnot. But when we come in the military or in the law enforcement, we have everybody else create that routine. And, you know, even as a mil spouse, we get thrown into a routine. It's just like, this is where we're going. This is the appointments. This is the base, this type of thing. Go to this event, that event, everything else and whatnot. And you get out and you don't know what to do to yourself. And it can go over. And if you don't have a good routine, it goes over and going. I'd say the past couple of days, even though it's a little weird having a routine, I think we operate a lot better in that regard. We're still going through the bumps, even after it's been 9 years since we've been out. And now it's a different routine because we're doing some other amazing things which we get to announce in 30 days. But creating that routine goes over and does a lot better. My wife's more smiley. She's more energetic. It's actually everything else. And that's the same thing happens with you as you go over and create that routine. So what benefits it has for you for creating a routine?
Well, it's just to know what to expect and have the best usage of time with you, because if we're in a conflict in the boardroom, it's not productive. Like it just helps us flow better and be more consistent and productive with our time.
Yep. Also, number 4, which most of us want to avoid when we get out and then realize that we need on a regular basis, is don't forget the PT. Oh, we got some comments. Let's go over there. Hey, Laura
Clarkston. Hey, nice to see you.
Let's go over and post that comment right there. Hey, Laura, thanks for joining.
Hi.
She is one of our superheroes in the civilian sector that goes over and helps us go over and thrive. And she is an awesome teacher out in the Gilbert area, if I remember, Gilbert Chandler area. She can comment on that if I got that wrong. So going back in there is don't forget PT. So if you're a civilian, PT means physical training or going to the gym, working out and whatnot. In the military and the law enforcement world and, you know, fire and EMS, you're either really highly encouraged or you work out with your partners and everything else. And when you're on those 24, 48-hour shifts, you know, you're eating together, you're sleeping together, you're working out together and everything else. And then once you got off, it's like, ugh, now you get out of the service or you get out of law enforcement and we don't know because we're not used to doing that. And especially if you never learned to go use a gym or do at-home stuff and everything else. And now in this post-apocalyptic world of COVID and shots everywhere, mine's next week, that we get out and we're like, we forget that. And then we kind of weigh out and then we're definitely not. And then we might binge out too much everything. And then then the boardroom does affect the bedroom, if you know what I mean.
Well, and working out helps bring mental clarity, gives time to think, and really helps you bring your best self into the boardroom. I mean, your health is really important to keep up and because in the boardroom, you're doing a lot of mental energy, a lot of physical energy, and it's just good to be ready to go and prepared for when you step into that boardroom, you can be fully in the boardroom.
Cool.
What, do you expect me to work out now? Yes,
I was like, if you want to smile for me, that's a workout.
Oh, get your phone.
Let's go check out the comments real quick before we go in again.
See.
She teaches. All right. So to clarify, Laura goes over and teaches in the Phoenix area. So if you want to go connect with her, I think she does some side businesses out there. And she said, good evening to my mom.
Ooh.
So
hello, mother-in-law.
Hello, mother-in-law. Oh, no. We're having streaming time. Twitch is acting funny. It's okay. We shall press on. So number 5, as we get out of the service, is stay connected with family and friends. You actually want to encourage this still while you're in the service as much as possible, so you have those roots. And it doesn't have to be like family and friends that you were biologically born with. It's like whatever you consider your family and friends, because sometimes not every family was great. Sometimes we went in the service to get away from our family and friends, but you need to go find those family and friends. The main reason why we struggled is we pulled away from all family and friends, geographically speaking. And when we worked in the mental health career field, and I didn't know this at the time, it's like, well, our potential clients for our first business, they said, well, if they walked in the mental health clinic, they couldn't be our clients. So even I had clients on the civilian world, and the second walk in, I had to like do refunds and whatnot and cancel appointments and whatnot. The funny part is if I would have took a little more time to research, my wife's like, you should have did that, is go over and find out. I found this out afterwards, and that was a live and learn, not a learn and live, as our main parent company. And a war hero to superhero doesn't go over and just live and learn, because if you live and learn, that's when we make the mistakes. So I found out that I could have stayed and worked with those clients once I left that Air Force specialty code or MOS or rate, depending on what branch you're from. And so we left our family and friends. We went down a place that nobody was connected to us all, and we started to establish relationships. And one of the things, if you are in the service and you do that, just so you understand, and it's not a dime out or anything, but civilian relationships, in my experience, take a lot longer to go over and build than the military relationships. You have the camaraderie, you have the connection, you have the job.
So based on your location, that I mean, we've had people in the civilian realm that won't drive even 20 minutes to come over, and it's all just you have to go to their location, or you don't. If you're not physically there, they don't even register you exist.
Yeah.
Unlike the military, you know, you could have friends all over the world. You know, Germany and England and the States. I mean, this distance is not a thing that is a barrier for someone that understands the military life, but it is not the same. It's not even on the same planet relationally with civilians, pure civilians.
Yeah, and that's our experience. So if you are that civilian, we're not trying to dog you, but at least from the military experience, that's where we come from, is that it takes so long to connect. And we have to adjust to you to go over and to drop those acronyms, because one of the things we do next is we sprechen Sie Deutsch.
I wonder if you did a misspelling, but no,
Yeah, I actually checked it.
What is that?
Sprechen, I said the V part is probably wrong, but I checked the Deutsch, and I used to say sprechen. So sprechen Sie Deutsch is like I speak German pretty much. And if you're any Germans and it is wrong, please go and put a comment in there so we can go share it and go do it right. So, but basically, we as military and law enforcement, EMS and everything else, and even some of the mil spouses, sometimes we get on acronyms. I've never been a mil spouse, but my wife doesn't visit much of them, so she's not the typical mil spouse. But once you get in there, those acronyms come out, and then it makes it harder to connect in the boardroom when you're always speaking that. Be like, I went to go do PT this morning. They're like, what? I went to go work out, you know? Probably need to get that, you know, civilian to military dictionary, and that's not, no, military to civilian dictionary. See how jacked up it is? I'm sprechen Sie Deutsching already. Is to grab that and learn those things, to go over and learn to speak. We don't want you to go over and just transition. We want you to transform. And excuse me, I transformed something I shouldn't have done. But we want you to transform, and those are some of the things that you might need to go over and do. Again, it depends on the environment. If you're working with a veteran-owned business, hey, great. That's going over and powerful. Like one of our partners in another business is a veteran, so we naturally connected a lot faster. But we do have 3 other civilians in our business venture, and we have to go over and we adjust and adapt to that. And it helps them to connect a lot faster when we initiate, because we've been the initiators the entire time in the military. So.
Yep.
Also, to go over and find a good veteran or LEO community. I would say that was probably one of my biggest downfalls, is that I focused so much on business and I focused so much on the boardroom. Not only did I go over and suffer, and my wife went over and suffered through like many different things. If you go back in past episodes, both of us have suffered a lot because of those types of things.
And there was a massive lack of friends and support based upon a lot of the actions he was not intentionally doing, but regardless of intentions or not, it equaled a lot of loneliness and a lot of just not having any support system to speak of and being utterly alone. Yeah.
So find that, and not just for yourself, for your spouse and for your kids. So if you're making that quote unquote transition out, and you're not staying in the local area, you're not moving back to a place that has family. And I met somebody today, they're like, yeah, it's really cold. My wife just went over and retired. We're moving back to Florida. Woo! You know, Florida is one of those places that has huge veteran communities, but even with them, I don't know who he is, but if he doesn't have that community and everything else, you don't find that. You think you're good for a while, but most veterans, even like Chris Hoffman, he helps in veteran transformation too. And he helps on you and more in the boardroom and everything else, and does a lot of coaching, consulting. Great program out of California. He hit that 3 to 6 year mark, and everything just went rock bottom for him. And we sort of kind of hit that same thing, and most veterans do that. So stay plugged in. Yeah, you're like, I got out of the service or I got out of that community. You'll find out that at least having those friends and having that community is going to help you with that transformation. So don't just go punch out and then just totally forget. There's very few that I meet that go over and says, I haven't been in the community for years. And some people do leave for years and then they realize what they miss. A lot of veteran businesses, sometimes 10 or 15 years later, I have a guy that's doing coffee right now. And he's like, and he realized that I missed this and my life is a lot more fruitful for it. So number 8, this one's another huge one, is manage your expectations. So, wifey, did I manage expectations well for the first few years?
No, they were way overblown, and your level of effort was not proportional to the level of where it should have been in the moment.
Yeah, I put too much expectations on her. I put too expectations on myself.
Are you talking about every area or just the business?
Oh, it's all, because it affects. Because if you're going,
you're not wrong. I was just saying
you're going into a new place in the boardroom, and you're making that transformation out, and also balancing out and trying to come in. If you do that too much, those places cover all 3 places. Mm-hmm. If I'm putting too much expectation of what the boardroom is going to deliver me, that's going to affect the living room and what my kids are expecting. I expect a 40-hour work week. I just got into a job and now it's a 60-hour work week, which then goes to affects the living room and what the kids and the wife or the husband or even
there's
the
no
grandpa.
Isolating it to any specific area. It's there.
Mm-hmm. So you got to go over and manage those expectations. It's better to work that roadmap out at home and then have an idea if something goes out of that thing. Is your spouse or kids willing to go and absorb? What are you willing to absorb when you go into this place? Is there a money issue in that particular regard? I'm going to remind you of this story. I was in Washington and I drove 70 miles for an interview. And this was a collection agency that did this stuff. I didn't manage my expectations. You think if I drove 70 miles, it'd be a decent job. I get told in the interview, hey, just want to tell you up front that this job is $11 an hour. What? I was glad she said it up front, but imagine she wasted my hour and a half, and then we got the final signing and whatnot. I walked in just like, hey, offering a job, here's my skill sets. I'm expecting this much. I would not want to join that boardroom. So you got to go manage those things. Sometimes you might find out when you're getting out of the service and trying to manage this stuff, and even the emotion sides of it, is that you think everything's going to go fine because you got this job lined up. You might find out it goes away. So we were in Washington again.
That was a fun one.
One. We went from Arkansas, so I'm trying to redeem from all the stupidity I did and all these things. And I'm thinking, it's going to be better on the other side. We're getting back to Washington and everything else. And what happened is 10 weeks later, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, we just signed rental papers on a house, which is amazing.
My coworker did something wrong that brought nationwide news. And I'm not just talking about Facebook viral. I'm talking about ABC, CBS, the POTUS, and everything else.
Did you go get interviewed?
I got interviewed by the FBI.
Yeah.
I was hoping to bring me there. That was managing my expectations. I'm like, come on, a major thing. I'll come back to DC. You can put a little weight lamp on me.
That is truly and honestly the closest I ever want to be to a national event.
Yeah. Because
it was absolutely surreal and completely insane.
Yeah, my coworker caused the event, but since I knew him, I was part of it.
You were in close proximity with the dude.
Yeah. So even with that, we had to learn to manage our expectations even on job flow.
Well, we expected to have that job, which nothing what it said. I mean, he got the job. It was a great job, but nothing could have prepared us to not expect to continue to have that job, but life sometimes changes in an instant, and you got to roll with it. And this, unfortunately, was a very unfortunate situation. We got through it, but it was not an easy situation.
Manage hand expectations.
Yes. I wasn't expecting that though, so I don't know how to manage that.
You went in my hand. That was perfect.
Well,
so now you got to click the mouse since I have to manage that expectation. Next one. This one is probably should have been number one for me.
Number one.
But this one
is number one now.
It's getting to number one.
Yeah.
It's not my natural.
No.
But as you're getting out of the service, getting out there and coming into another boardroom, or even if you're a civilian watching this and you're saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to go to another boardroom, I want to go change my place, save lots of money. Wherever you feel on this gentleman, I'm an 80-20 on him, but Dave Ramsey has a lot of great principles in the financial world to go do those baby steps, or you can do Cron Financial Ministries, or you can get connected with a financial advisor or whoever you want to do. But if you're getting out of the service, getting out of the force, or even if you're watching this as a civilian, as a patriot, and you're like, hey, this is good wisdom, and you're going to go leave that boardroom, you might want to emotionally leave. This is my current job that's providing for the main thing. I want to leave. It's not because of the people. It's just because I can't really do full-time things I'm going to do. That has the thing. But if I rush out like I did in the past and go over and do that, you can put yourself in a financial room. You might think like, I'm emotionally fine now. I left this boardroom. I'll find another. The average boardroom to go back to, unless you're going entrepreneurial or direct sales or anything else, or even if you start your own business, you might have good money because of your credit. It still takes 6 to 9 months on average to get that new job, or to at least get your business to getting to paying the main bills, so then you can start paying yourself. Sometimes they say some businesses can take up to 3 years depending on the type of thing you go over and do. So
you can't just assume that, you're going to transition from service and automatically your skills are going to cross over and qualify you for, unless you're like on the officer side where like, they're doing like doctors or like a specialty. But if you're just on the enlisted side, you may, like my husband did IT and he had years and years of experience, but without the certifications, which you didn't have them, he's paid peanuts, and peanuts doesn't pay the bills for beginning. I mean, at one point you had how many part-time jobs? 3?
No, I had 6. I
part-time
had
jobs.
Full and part-time.
Yeah,
so
it was insane. The guy was just constantly on the move. And that's why we're kind of taking a different track, because there's something inherently wrong when your boardroom consists of 6 individual part-time jobs all running at the same time, and yet you can't pay your bills. There's a serious malfunction when your boardroom is functioning that way. That's not right. Wouldn't wish that for anybody in that. I'm not saying that situation doesn't happen. Sometimes you just have to grind and grind and grind.
Yeah, but if you can go over and do that right now, now with the active duty, if you're active duty, the TSP automatically enrolls 1% and everything else, go over and aggressively invest into those types of things as you have the revenue, and go over and do that. If you're law enforcement, you have a good 401k or anything else, have that revenue. And
have an investment budget. I mean, there was one time, it's a specific that there was a small investment that my husband could have made that would benefited the boardroom and benefited Jeff, but he questioned it because he didn't think I would think that it would have been an investable.
It went totally viral.
And it went viral.
It has hundreds of millions of views.
It's just smart to have a budget set aside saying that, hey, I see a smart investment as long as it's a reasonable investment and something that you can potentially take a loss on. I mean, it's better to take a risk on something that you get an ROI than sit there and then watch it explode. And then you're just left behind seeing what should have been something you put investment in.
I wish I knew about GameStop about 2 months ago, if you know what I mean. That was a great one.
In high school, I wish I knew about Amazon, but we can't go back.
I'm thinking a time machine could work for 6 weeks. But anyway.
Just 6 weeks.
All right, and the last one, get your associate's degree, but don't cram for the test. This one actually comes out of our book, and you go over and grab my book for me. We're still publishing other ones, so this ain't a boardroom one, but this one says a real good one about balancing this stuff out. So when we went over and got married, and you can find this book, Leave No Marriage Behind, on Amazon, 99 cents. So grab it while you can. You just never know if I have time to update the price. So, scary, right? Limited time. All right. So, but when we're in marriage and we talk about going over and learning your spouse and to go over and thrive, we tell you to go get a doctorate degree. When you go over and you're getting into the living room, getting to know your kids, you get a bachelor's degree. And when you go over and you're going to the boardroom and connect with people, you get an associate's degree. You might already have these quote unquote degrees hanging on your wall. But if you're jumping to someone else's boardroom and you're getting out of the service, you need to get an associate's degree on where you're going. Mm-hmm. It's not like one of those things that's USD certified. Is a concept of mine is saying that in this time, you need to start learning where you're going. Now, you're starting entrepreneurial stuff, you need to get that associate's degree on where you're going. What's a business plan? What's an EIN? What's a DUNS? Do I need to go over and get a NACIS? I'm just throwing acronyms at you, but it took me years to go over and learn. If you cram for the test, which I did when I got out of the service, it failed. I thought cash out my TSP, which is about 8 to 10, to balance out the load of education taking out, because I tried, and then the Air Force does that whole, you need to do this. And I'm like, no, and they don't balance. So rules are rules. We followed them. And then I got a severance package, and I'm basically doing GED work and doing quick math and saying, if based on this, I can do 3 months. I didn't get my associate's degree and even talk to anybody doing this boardroom transition in my bedroom and blending all the rooms. And I just kept going. So when you're crammed for the test, and this could be for a job interview, this could be for going to school, this could be going over and starting with a company, this could be a startup business and everything else, you want to get that associate's degree, but you always want to balance out having that bachelor's degree at home and investment, and also your doctorate degree. Because when the boardroom fails, and I don't mean to be mean, but we averagely go, when you get out of the service, and even civilians, we change our jobs how many times? I want to see if you remember this one.
I think it's 10.
You're pretty close. You're pretty close. It is 9. Let me see if I can do the fingers. Close. 9. See, I did it right. Camera's a horrible one. I do this. 9. I almost went like this. It was horrible. So did it again. Oh, thumb, stay. 9. I just want to go 8, but it's 9. Average 9 times from 18 to 65. Mm-hmm. I changed my boardrooms with and other jobs. And if you're live or watching this on the replay, I would love for you to go guess.
You changed your boardrooms more than I changed my clothes.
During
some seasons of life.
I went over and changed so many outfits so many times. So from going from 2012, getting out of the service until just late 19, I had 70 different boardrooms I was in. And then and then you calculate if it's the contract work I did, I was in other people's boardrooms as contractors. So I've been in hundreds of different situations, either as a contractor or different else. I sometimes went to 5 boardrooms a week when I was a contract trainer. So I was continually working on my associate's degree in that regard. So you want to go over and not cram for the test. And unfortunately, for years, I crammed for that next test, didn't go get the wisdom to come out of it, or didn't have the bandwidth or the money or the time. And so many tests I failed. So
here you sit.
Yeah.
So that's not a fail.
So it's a fail in the sense that I didn't go over and get the associate's degree in there. It took a little more time and a little more investment in that regard, a little more investment in people. And this sweetie over here, learning a lot from there. And also if you can leverage your sweetie to help you build that associate's degree, so you bond together when you get out of the service.
Some spouses, it just really depends on the dynamic that you have with your spouse. I love working with him. Our boardroom we worked for a temp agency, and we were making ballots, and that was fun. Like, we had a lot of fun. I didn't much care for the job, but he makes me laugh, and he's just hilarious. And then we worked at Axon, which is making tasers, and we got to work together. Some shifts we got to sit at the table and make these little widgets and talk, and then get yelled at because you want to treat the little thing like a light bright and make little patterns because they're being productive. And then we're like, you can't have fun. And I'm like, but we want to have fun.
Yeah.
So,
and that's going to
sucking the fun out of the job. But it was a boardroom.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to go over and carry. So that associate's degree is going to be yourself when you're getting out of service. But if your spouse can help you learn that degree on, because your spouse might have worked with more people, they have more intuition or discernment and whatnot, those types of things. Like, hey, that color doesn't work when you go in that particular thing. What do you mean my tie that says go to hell is gonna be a bad thing in the interview? So get that doctoral degree in your spouse too, and then he or she, and sometimes even your kids can go share some wisdom with you, and you can glean off that depending on their age and whatnot. So that's the 10. So again, the 10 things that we want to help you go transition to this world, actually transform to this world, because that's what we do at War Hero Superhero. Learn your triggers, take it slow, create a routine, don't forget about PT, stay connected with family and friends. Sprechen Sie Deutsch. If you're in German, speak Deutsch. If you're in English, speak English. So learn to speak Civilianese. Find a good veteran or an LEO community. That's law enforcement officer community. Manage your expectations. Save lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money. Average about 6 to 9 months of revenue if you can. If not, then find other ways to bring it in. And then get your associate's degree and don't cram for the test. So our superhero challenge for the day is, since my wife reads so beautifully and hopefully I typed this right, would you mind reading the superhero challenge?
It says, share your favorite transition story on how you conquered this challenge or share your failures. We learn from both. And there should be a period.
Yep.
Or an exclamation point would even be more fitting for grammar.
Yes.
I'm the grammar
I can create content real quick, but sometimes the grammar goes.
I for detail, not so much, but that's why we make a good team.
So we hope that you go over and enjoyed this episode. Go over and take this superhero challenge and everything else.
Fix it while you're on here.
Fixing what? No, we're not going to fix it while we're on here. We'll do it later. So, all right. So if you are struggling as a military veteran first responder, no matter if it's from the bedroom to the boardroom, we give 20 minutes free for every single person that goes over and does that. And we want to help you go over and grow. We also have a Patreon, which you're going to try to reboot back on, but more to follow on that. And continue to go over and watch us, because we're going to be growing to the next exponential level.
It's very exciting what we have on the horizon.
Yep.
And just keep tuned in, and because we're not able to give the full update and details, but there is something huge in the works.
Yep.
And it's very exciting.
Yep. And that's the great part too. And if you're a military veteran and first responder, we are going to go serve you well, and you guys will have special rates for those services that we're offering shortly. So if you know us from our past, it's basically what we did last year and an upgrade in that particular regard. So we're always going to be transparent, but we want to make sure we have all our ducks in the row,
That's a great thing.
Websites and LLCs and everything up and rolling. And then once we do, then we'll launch it public.
At the end of the day, we're here to serve everybody and serve everybody well.
Yep. So we want to thank you for going over and joining us. And again, we also, if you ever want to be one of our sponsors, because one of our sponsors sadly had to leave for other reasons, you can go over and we have spots for sponsors on the podcast. So if you want to go do that, we do as low as $50 a month. So if you're going over and looking to gain some traction and gain some audience as we go over and grow, and you want to be uplifted as a brand, go over and connect with us.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So thank you for going over and joining us, and we will see you Saturday. This time I will be there. I'm not drilling. Is in Clubhouse talking about. I can't read that. It says expressing. No, I can't read it. We'll tell you later. All right. So that's a part of an organic live, right? We're expressing something to all people. Yep. So we're gonna be expressing something. Yep. We're gonna be expressing. So we're gonna go and we're gonna let you go because there's only 0 watching us right now, at least on my notes. All right. And if you're watching this on the replay, put a comment for my funny comments.